Imagine waking up tonight at precisely 2 in the morning. You roll over, stare at the ceiling, and realize your mind is completely awake. The house is silent. The world outside is frozen in darkness. Today, we call this insomnia. We view it as a glitch in our modern biology, a frustrating, anxious problem to be solved with sleeping pills, infinite scrolling, or a glass of warm milk. But if you lived 500 years ago, this midnight wakefulness wouldn't frustrate you at all. In fact, you would have been expecting it, because for thousands of years, sleeping straight through the night for 8 uninterrupted hours was considered completely unnatural. Before the Industrial Revolution, before the invention of the light bulb, and before humanity became obsessed with artificial schedules, our ancestors slept in 2 distinct blocks. They lived by a biological rhythm that has been completely erased from our collective memory, a phenomenon known as segmented sleep. Tonight, we go back to the dark world of our ancestors to uncover why we used to wake up in the dead of night, what we actually did during those secret hours, and the terrifying psychological cost of losing them. To understand how this worked, meet Thomas. It is the year 1642 in a small, nameless village in England. Thomas is a blacksmith. He has spent the last 12 hours lifting heavy iron under a grueling sun. When the sun dips below the horizon at 7 p.m., the world goes completely black. There are no streetlights. Candles are expensive luxuries. So, like everyone else in his village, Thomas goes to bed. By midnight, Thomas has completed what his era calls the first sleep. This was a deep, restorative slumber that healed his physical body from the day's labor. But watch what happens next. Thomas doesn't struggle to stay asleep. He opens his eyes, fully rested, completely alert, and perfectly calm. He doesn't check a clock. He doesn't have one, but his internal biological clock tells him it is time. Across the village, smoke begins to rise from chimneys. Lanterns flicker to life through small glass windows. The entire world has just woken up. This was not a mistake. This was the watch, the 2-hour window where humanity stepped out of time. What did a world do with 2 hours of collective midnight darkness? They didn't waste it. In fact, historical records show that these 2 hours were considered the most profound, creative, and spiritual hours of a human life. For the deeply religious, it was the time for nocturnal prayers. In the quietest hours of the night, away from the chaos of daytime chores, they felt closest to the divine. For philosophers and writers, it was a golden era of thought. The brain, freshly rested from the first sleep, was in a unique neurological state. It was flooded with prolactin, a hormone that induces a state of peaceful, lucid tranquility. Modern science shows that during this midnight gap, the human brain is highly creative. It exists in a hybrid state between dreaming and waking. Thomas uses this time to sit by the fire and speak with his wife. In a world without televisions or smartphones, these hours were the only time a married couple could talk without the interruptions of children or work. Other neighbors would walk across the dark paths to visit one another, share a pipe, or check on the livestock. It was a quiet, secret society. And then, around 2 a.m., a familiar drowsiness would wash over the village. Thomas would drift into his second sleep, a lighter, dream-filled slumber that would carry him until dawn. For nearly all of recorded human history, from ancient Greece to the tribes of Africa, this was the natural rhythm of human existence. So, what happened? The answer is simple. Greed, industry, and the invention of artificial light. In the late 1700s, the Industrial Revolution rewired the world. Factories emerged, and factory owners realized that if a machine stopped running at night, they lost money. Suddenly, time was monetized. Street lighting altered the psychology of the night. The dark was no longer a sacred, quiet space. It became an extension of the day. By the 1800s, the concept of a work shift was born. Workers were forced into factories for 14 hours a day. Going to sleep at 7 p.m. was no longer an option. Humanity was forced to compress its sleep. We were told to squeeze all of our rest into one single, solid 8-hour block so we could maximize our productivity during the day. By the early 1900s, the second sleep had completely vanished from public consciousness. It was erased so thoroughly that today we don't even know it existed. Which brings us back to you, sitting in the dark at 2 a.m., staring at your ceiling, wondering why you can't sleep. When you experience midnight insomnia, your body isn't broken. It is simply remembering. It is reaching back through centuries of evolutionary programming, trying to return to the natural rhythm that Thomas and millions before him took for granted. By forcing ourselves into an artificial, unbroken 8-hour sleep block, we didn't just change our habits. We severed our connection to the most peaceful, reflective hours of the human experience. We traded the sacred, creative, midnight quiet for an extra hour of morning traffic. So, the next time you wake up in the dead of night, don't fight it. Don't reach for your phone. Turn off the lights, sit in the quiet, and embrace the watch. Your ancestors are waiting for you in the dark.